And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast. I'm Ace McKay, always glad when we can just hang out. Podcast Central, a great place to get in on the conversations and find out what it can do to be making your faith deeper and closer to God. As we, of course, try to make sense of what's happening in our world and in our lives. Well, it's always great to get into God's Word first, so let's get a look at your Mass readings for this weekend as we get your Word on the Word.
Compare and contrast. Those were two words that I heard all the time growing up.
Are you talking about like the diagram with the two overlapping circles?
Exactly. And you know what? My circles never really looked quite right. Like, no matter how many times I drew them, one was always smaller or uneven than the other one.
Well, what's your point, Melissa?
Okay, so anyway, the compare and contrast technique worked. That's why I had to use it so much. And you know what? Jesus, the greatest teacher ever, used that method also.
Like in this Sunday's gospel?
Exactly. Hi, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Veronica. So what were you saying?
I was talking about the Pharisee and the tax collector praying in the temple. So the Pharisee thanked God that he wasn't a disgraceful man and started listing off things that should please God, like fasting and tithing. Meanwhile, on the other side of the temple, the tax collector wouldn't even look up, and he called on God's mercy. Jesus said that the exalted will be humbled and the humbled will be exalted.
So are we going to compare and contrast now?
Yep, and you can start.
Oh, well, one difference I noticed is that the Pharisee names all the things that he was doing. Fasting and tithing are great as long as they're done in the name of God and not for our own ego. We need to keep a humble mindset and remember that what we're doing is for God, not for ourselves.
Another major difference is the length and complexity of their prayers. I think that there is something beautiful about the short, simple prayer of the tax collector. You could tell that it came from his heart, and that reminds me that not all of my prayers have to be long and well thought out.
We challenge you to write your own prayer and pray it silently every day for a week. It can be however long or short that you want it to be, as long as it comes from the heart.
And we'll see you here next week. Bye!
Well, getting close to wrapping up our year of Jubilant in Year C. More of Word on the Word, easy to find at Podcast Central when you go to EWTN.com/podcast or simply subscribe to Word on the Word as we get ready for Year A so you can start from the beginning. I'm Ace McKay. This is Catholics Coast to Coast, and today as we jump into our first conversation, we're going to deep dive with Father Dominic Rankin, who is answering questions about not eating right, not exercising, or even not taking our meds. What is the moral line? Let's get the latest from Father Dominic as we deep dive with this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
From the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois, this is Dive Deep. We dive deep into our Catholic faith. I am Andrew Hansen, pleased to be joined by Father Dominic Rankin. Father Dominic, always good to see you. How are you, my friend?
Good to be here. Great.
This whole, idea of what does stewardship of the body really look like? As I mentioned at the top, we all get caught up in maybe being lazy. Where's the line between laziness and slothful? Is exercising if we're not taking care of our bodies, but where's the line in taking care of our bodies? So we're going to get into all that. But before we talk about maybe where that line is when it comes to sin, you've done so much research, theology of the body with Pope St. John Paul II, of course, is close to your heart. You've done a lot of research on this. What are we getting wrong, broadly speaking, when it comes to stewardship of our body? What are we doing right?
Great question. So I think in our day and age, it's been interesting to see just the last decade or two, maybe a growing focus on taking care of our bodies and you're seeing a little bit of an uptick in people trying to eat well or, kind of making these different decisions that are going to help them in that regard. So I think in some ways we've seen more interest in that area, different diets, different, ways of taking care of yourself, right? But I think it's because we're facing sort of a breakdown or a disintegration is the word that the church would use here, right? And it comes down to sort of the integration, the connection, the union between our bodies and our souls. And much of these past few centuries, really, in the modern world, we've sort of, in some ways, disconnected those things. A lot of people would trace this back to the thinker Descartes. He's the one who said famously, "I think, therefore I am," right? So he kind of really emphasized, he really focused in on the mental or the intellectual action of the mind, right? And in some ways, sort of, the body was just there to kind of, keep us so we can keep thinking. You know what I mean? There was a sense of like, he was talking about humanity, he was arguing about God from a premise entirely based on our minds, right? And so the body kind of gets sidelined in a certain way. This comes out in some weird ways because on the one hand, I think in our modern day, we see situations, we see examples, and we see this in ourselves sometimes too, of kind of denigrating or neglecting the body. Think about the ways that we don't care for ourselves in a bodily way. The days that, I work from dawn to dusk. I don't have any breaks in there. I'm cramming down, a Pop-Tart in the morning and, you know what I mean? Just like an energy drink in the afternoon to kind of punch me through. And there's a way that I'm kind of discarding or sort of putting to the side my body. My body's getting in the way of me. And so I'm going to kind of ignore it or kind of control it or manipulate it, right? We see this in a different way in the examples of the times that we focus too much on our bodies. Maybe I'm too concerned with my physical appearance, or I'm going and having procedures done or taking different drugs or things to again kind of control or manipulate perhaps my own experience, my inner feelings. I want to keep those exactly where I want them. And so again, maybe it's the too much coffee in the morning, too much alcohol at night, to kind of like get me up and then get me down. And there's this on both extremes of neglecting our bodies and overemphasizing them. In both places, what have we done? We've ignored or we've lost sight of the integrity that should be there between our bodies and our souls. The fact that our bodies are good and they're part of us, but they're not all of us. And so we should neither put all of our attention into them and spend hours a day exercising or whatever, nor should we entirely neglect them or kind of use my body as just a means to kind of do what I want to do.
Now, that's great context to kind of dive deeper into this issue. Of course, we know going to Mass, well, we should know. Going to Mass, good. Not going to Mass, bad. There are some objective realities when it comes to our faith. But when it comes to eating, exercising, all the stuff, taking medicine or not taking medicine, which we're going to get into, there's some more blurry lines there. So I want you to try to hopefully kind of break this down for us so we can get a little more objective with these things. And I want to first talk about food and drink. So, drinking pop. I'm a north of I-80 guy, so I don't call it soda, but okay, soda pop. Having brownies. Of course, we all know, having a brownie here and there, having a, glass of wine, every once in a while. But where is the line when it comes to eating and drinking too much or eating and drinking unhealthy?
Good question. A few thoughts bubble into my mind. We'll see which ones end up taking the stage here.
Oh, and really quick, is there also, when does sin come in?
Yeah.
When you start to go down that road?
Absolutely. So the church talks about those deadly sins, right? That list of sins that are the ones that particularly kind of spiral us into bad places and can really cut us off from God, right? All the way to the point where we lose sanctifying grace. It starts the list with pride, envy, kind of these bigger ones at the top of the list. You get down to the bottom of the list, this is where you get to gluttony and sloth. And it's interesting, I think, just to notice that the church puts the emphasis in that order. Many times when we're talking about kind of these questions about taking care of our bodies or eating or drinking or exercising or whatever, yeah, we can get kind of focused on that. It's a very easy thing to kind of pay attention to. And whether we're struggling there or not, I think we can quickly sort of hone in on what's happening there. It's very easy to quantify how many sodas did I have today or how many brownies did I have this week. You know what I mean? Whereas sometimes those things of how many times did I act with pride? It's a little bit of a harder question to answer. It takes a little bit more kind of interior sort of kind of exploration and examination of our conscience and stuff. So I think in some ways we there's a temptation or a leaning to kind of flip the list around and to focus more on those ones of sloth, of gluttony. It's easy to kind of hone in and be like, oh, golly, I ate too much today, and we can kind of hyper focus on that. And maybe that's not what the church is asking of us. So I'm going to put that there. Also holding in mind that all of us face these questions about our bodies in different ways. And I want to just be kind of mindful of that and gentle in that because I know that some people who are listening to us have really severe struggles in that area. Maybe it's some injury or some illness that they carry right in their bodies, and they confront that every day, and there's a weakness there or a lack there that is constantly kind of, it eats away at us, right? If there's some loss there that maybe it was our fault, maybe it was somebody else's fault, maybe it's nobody's fault, but there's something there that kind of constantly nags us, right? It's my body's not everything I want it to be, right? Or maybe it's the person who, is struggling with overeating or struggling with undereating, right? These different things that, again, different people face those temptations in different ways or face those struggles in different ways. So all of us are are going to have different areas in this question that we're maybe struggling with, or maybe is a place of real weakness or shame. And I want to like name that and say like, hey, let's hold on to some of these fundamental truths first before we start drilling into the practical question. Not that we shouldn't drill into the practical question, but to just acknowledge that we want to stay with the truths that God speaks about us, about our bodies and our souls. And that's like the primary thing that we hold on to. And all the practices that we have in either area, whether it's taking care of our spiritual life or taking care of our physical life, all the practices that we have in either of those areas is meant to sort of reconnect us, re-ground us, like bring us back to that wholeness, that goodness that God sees in us. That maybe, we're struggling to hold fast to, and we need to take some steps in the right direction. Okay, practical steps. Where's the line? Again, going back to that theme of that topic, especially let's start with gluttony. It's really fascinating. If you flip open the catechism and you look for the word gluttony, it comes up like 3 times. It's not coming up on every page, you know? It's like a few different times it's mentioned along with the list of the other deadly sins. And then in the glossary, it has a short definition of gluttony about the overindulgence in food or other, pleasures of the body, I guess. So it doesn't put a whole lot of time and attention into that deadly sin, even though it's deadly, even though it's certainly a problem, and certainly in our Western world, we have an abundance of food and drink around us. It's so easy to kind of like consume in that way. So it is a place of concern, but it's not something that the church spends a lot of time focusing on. What I would point out that the church focuses us on is that there should be a natural kind of balance and rhythm to our enjoyment of food and drink in our lives. And so in a particular way, just looking at the week, the church asks us on Friday to make some sacrifice. And it recommends not eating meat, but there's sort of a sense of you'd probably make some sort of bodily sacrifice on Fridays to unite yourself with the Lord as he took on the cross for us, right? On Sundays, it's a weekly day that we're supposed to rejoice, right? We're supposed to celebrate. And so I think I don't know, can we have a little bit of fun with this and say, hang on, in our modern world, I'm apt to eat whatever I want every day of the week. And so it kind of actually takes away from the enjoyment that I find in food, because if I eat a brownie every single day, guess what? It gets kind of boring, right? But if I save having a brownie for Sunday, guess what? Now it's something that's actually tastes better. I enjoy it more, and it's probably more in that right balance of how much am I consuming this. And especially maybe Friday, I'm like, hey, I'm going to actually hold off on some of those things that I really enjoy for the sake of making this sacrifice. That's just a simple way that maybe we can find that balance in the rhythm that the church offers us in the liturgical life of fasting and feasting.
Finding that line. So let me give you kind of more of an example.
Great,
so I always remember with gluttony, especially when it comes to eating, is basically eating just to eat.
Yeah.
Where you've had your fill and you're just now eating simply because, well, it just tastes good. I don't need this at all. My belly is already full, but I'm just going to eat anyway.
Yeah.
All of us do that.
We've all been there. Yes, absolutely.
All of us do that. And here's the thing. I don't think I'm willing to admit this. I've never confessed the sin of gluttony.
Yeah.
Even though, my gosh, when I go to a party and I have a brownie and I'm full, I'm going to have myself another brownie.
Yeah.
And that was really good. I'm going to have another one. And it's like, that's a deadly sin. And boy, I sure don't feel like I'm committing a deadly sin. I just feel like if you were to ask me, Andrew, are you overindulging? I'd say, yeah, but these brownies are amazing.
Yeah.
And it's good. Where am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. What am I doing wrong? Because I think everyone thinks probably that same thing.
Let's frame this with 2 things. One is I'm gonna go to a definition or description of gluttony by St. Thomas Aquinas. So he expands on it a little bit, and I found it fascinating. He's going to use a similar definition when he's referring to alcohol as well, and I'll kind of connect the dots here. But when talking simply about food, he says that the problem is not the food itself. The problem is that when we are committing gluttony, we're kind of losing our reason, our rationality, our freedom in that moment, right? So like if I'm going back to the brownie spread and I'm having number 3 and I'm not even able to like kind of think about that decision anymore. You know what I mean? Or I'm not really enjoying it anymore. I'm just like scarfing it down. I find this in myself. Honestly, sometimes I'm eating too quick. I'll say that again. Like I'm going after brownie number 3, and I'm like chowing it down. And I'm not even like, the first one was good. The second one was okay. The third one is like, I'm not really enjoying it. I thought it was good, but I'm having another, and I'm kind of scarfing it down even too fast to kind of notice that it's great. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good red flag of like, have I started to lose a little bit of the enjoyment here? You know, I go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and I'm like, well, I got to get my money's worth, right?
Yeah.
So there I am, you know, plate number 3, and it's like I'm eating it just because I think I ought to, because I want to get my $15.99 worth of food or whatever, and I'm not even like enjoying it anymore. I'm stuffed, but more than that, I'm like not even perceiving the good that's there. I'm not even grateful to God for this food. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of taking me away from those higher things that I could discover in a good meal, and I'm just sort of spiraling into the like consuming calories without thinking about it, right?
So I asked this next question, I guess half jokingly, but half
Great.
serious.
Yeah.
After every Thanksgiving, should all of America be going to the confessional?
Good question. I think it depends on, well, honestly, the day after Thanksgiving is Friday. What are you doing that Friday? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's days, the church's sort of evaluation of whether something is gluttony does not depend on, did I eat the same number of calories that I burned today, right? And we can kind of get into a little bit of that mindset. Maybe not everybody's a calorie counter, you know, or something, but like, I think we have a sense of like, you know, I didn't exercise today and I ate way too much at lunch. You know what I mean? And like, there's that sense of kind of just that interior sense of like dis-ease, like, I feel kind of like lazy. I feel kind of gluttonous. I feel kind of just crummy today, you know? Okay, there's something to be said about that. But what did I do the rest of the week? What did I do the rest of, you know, the day after that, right? I have to sort of, I don't know, pay attention to that myself, right? Like, some days I'll go on a long run. You know, if I'm training for a marathon and I do a 20-mile run on a Saturday morning, the odds are that throughout that Saturday, even if I eat pretty good, I haven't eaten enough to make up for the amount of calories that I burned that morning, right? And that's kind of extreme case, right? But then I get to Sunday or Monday and I'm like, you know what? I can be a little bit more free with myself and say, hey, I'm going to have a good plate of food, because honestly, yesterday I burned a lot of calories, and I am sort of, food is meant to be a fuel for me. It's meant to be a nourishment, right? To keep our bodies, in a good state of affairs. And I think that sort of goalpost gives us a bit more clarity in this whole area of like, what's the purpose of food? What am I aiming for? I love that line from St. Irenaeus where he says, the glory of God is man fully alive. Okay, did what I eat today, did the amount of food that I ate today, or the things that I chose in eating, did that lead to me having a greater kind of fullness of life, a greater capacity to do the things that give me the most joy, greater capacity to pray, to love, to sacrifice myself, right? Like, these are higher things that humans can commit themselves to, and food is meant to be a kind of a means to that end, right? But if I'm going back to, you know, the brownie counter and I'm on number 3, like, okay, is that helping me to celebrate this joyous wedding better? Is it helping me to, you know, be present to the people around me this evening? Is it helping me to, you know, like, asking some of those higher questions, I think gives us a bit more clarity of like, the question isn't just, you know, is this going to make me gain weight? Or is this going to, you know, go over the amount of calories that I burned today, or something like that? But is this going to help or hinder my capacity to do the best and highest and most beautiful things that a human can do?
Very interesting. I will say I really want a brownie right now.
I am with you.
Okay, what about exercise? If we don't exercise, and we all know exercise is good for us,
Yeah.
and we say, I don't want to exercise, is that sinful because by definition we're not taking care of the body that God has given us?
Yeah, this is great. So I'm gonna anticipate something from John Paul II's theology of the body here, and he talks about, certainly that theology of the body engages questions of marriage and family. That's where I, you know, spent the most time with it. But the basic premise that he starts from is that we are meant to be a gift to those around us, right? This is the great example that Christ gives to us, right? My body given for you. And so in our bodies, I think we're especially able to sort of give ourselves to those around us. And exercise is training ground for that gift. Obviously, it's also a good way to take care of our bodies and to maintain our health and things like that. But I think to, again, kind of elevate our sight a little bit and make sure that we're mindful of the fact that like when I go and I hit the gym and it's a hard day and I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it today because I know it's good for me. But I know it's also good so that I can be, awake and kind of like, not just this afternoon, but also a year or 10 from now. I want my body to be strong and healthy and capable so I can continue to do what the Lord asks of me, right? And so again, I think it's helpful to kind of keep that higher purpose in mind. And also, I think it gives us a chance to sort of grip both the immediate sort of like goals of like, okay, I want to gain some muscle, or I want to be stronger in this area, or I want to heal this injury, whatever it is. But also the longer term goal of, and a decade or 2 or 3 from now, I want to be in a state where my body is still able to serve the Lord well and to make myself a gift to those around me.
So if we actively choose to not exercise, and we all know the benefits, if we actively choose to indulge in these, bad things for our health, and not just one-offs here and there,
right?
But is that then the warning of you have entered into sin?
Yes, good question. Let me phrase this well.
Because I know maybe what I'm asking you might be kind of hard because it's a little more gray. It's not like objective, like you don't go to mass, you go to mass. When's a sin? When, obviously you going to mass is what you're supposed to do. But, what I'm really trying to get at is because we all fall into these traps.
Yes.
We all fall into these mindsets. And you look at our culture, how many people are obese and not, and yes, there could be other reasons why, other health reasons, and that's another category, of course. But if people are just eating, if people are choosing not exercising, i.e. they're not taking care of their body the way God, designed us for, is that in essence, we're kind of saying, God, you gave me this body, I don't care about the body you gave me. And that's not good.
Yeah, no, you brought up a really important point, which is not only are our bodies meant to be a gift, a way that we give ourselves away, but they've also been a gift to us, right? That God has given us the gift of all of ourselves, our bodies, our souls, right? And it's meant to be a gift that we receive and care for and cherish and protect, right? I think sometimes it's helpful to consider how we would sort of do that for somebody else in our lives. Sometimes it's difficult to apply the logic to ourselves because we're kind of, as it turns out, ourselves. Like it's hard to kind of get outside of ourselves to sort of like consider some of these things. So I think to imagine someone else that's in the situation that you're in, and they come up to you and they describe the week that they've had, which is the one that you've had, right? And they describe the day that they're in, and they're asking advice like, hey, should I work out today or should I take it easy? I think, what would you say to somebody else in a similar boat to yourself? I think we have a pretty good innate sort of understanding of like, what's the right balance here? Obviously, we're supposed to, take care of our bodies, but also there's some days where it's like, you know what, I just need to take it easy. Like I've been run ragged for 5 or 6 days. I worked out pretty hard last, 2 days ago, and I'm just still kind of down and out. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, let's rest, let's relax, let's allow your body to recover from the physical, but also all the other stuff that we might be carrying around with us, right? And maybe that's actually the better kind of recommendation. That's the better way to take care of yourself or to kind of receive that gift of your body today. I think it also maybe, again, if we were thinking about what would I say, what would I do or encourage someone else that I love in my life, and maybe that longer term pattern is something that we also want to like keep an eye on. It's like, okay, I don't really exercise. I don't really like it. And I'm not even getting out for a walk. It's like, okay, I've gotten into this bad pattern. What if somebody else came up to me and said, hey, I'm kind of in a slump and I haven't been doing anything? Where would I tell them to start? What would I tell them to do? Where would I encourage them? I think, again, with somebody else in mind, we'd be better able to give them, I think, helpful advice than ourselves. I don't know, everybody January 1st, myself included, we come up with the master plan. We're like, this year, I'm going to do something. I'm going to, sign up for that race. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to be there every day. And we kind of get these grandiose plans, and it's way too big to actually accomplish. And so then we set ourselves up for failure because we've kind of bitten off more than we can chew. In exercise, what's small steps in the right direction? Oftentimes those small steps have big dividends. And again, we're body and soul. And so when we put one little piece in the right place as regards our bodies, well, suddenly we find that it's easier to pray, or it's easier to love, or it's easier to, kind of go about our work in a joyous way. These other pieces of our life start to come together, and that makes it easier to kind of take further little steps in all these areas. And we gradually come more and more close to that fullness of life that the Lord wants for us.
Now, on the flip side, you mentioned this at the beginning, which I think people also forget, is there's also the opposite side of it is you're exercising or maybe you're eating, it's consuming your life. Yeah. I'll throw this out there for your confirmation. If you're working out so much and you're taking selfies of yourself in the gym and posting them, that's probably a red line that you've crossed. Okay, you're nodding your head.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
So and I want you to talk about that aspect because there is also I'm working out in order to, okay, we all want to look good, but the God of ourselves or the God of, I'm not even going to touch a brownie ever because if I put 1 ounce of sugar in it, again, there are some people who can't eat sugar. We're not saying that. But, is that become, where's the line there where we need to be, is this becoming a God in my life?
I think you've put the right terms on it, right? Is that question of idolatry, of have I put more focus on this thing, this goal or my own physique or my own kind of like bodily health? Have I prioritized that above the sake of the Lord? There's plenty of saints that give us examples of times where they seriously sacrificed their body, sometimes with permanent or long-term consequences for the sake of what God was calling them to, right? We have to have good discernment there, and that's where a good spiritual director or somebody can help us. If we're seriously considering doing something that's extraordinary in terms of fasting or in terms of sacrifice or something in that regard, we want to have other voices sort of to listen to in that regard. We don't want to try to just make that on our own. But I think honestly, in our day and age, we see more of the latter, which is people who prioritize their bodies too much to the neglect of their spiritual life, right? We've allowed our muscles to gain an awful lot of strength and our souls have atrophied in the meantime, right? And this is just like a sad state of affairs because, we've emphasized one part of ourselves to the detriment of these other parts of ourselves. And going back to John Paul II again, he would often describe sort of good human relationship and the way that we love one another is we have to love the entire person, right? Like not some part of them. We don't want to dwindle them down to one aspect of what they look like or one part of their personality. We want to love everything that they are. That goes for us as well. Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If we're loving ourselves in a sort of part by part way or loving one part of ourselves and not some other part of ourselves, we're investing in one part of our lives and entirely neglecting another part of our lives, well, golly, it's going to be hard to invest or love or cherish another person in our life in their totality if I'm sort of not doing that for myself. So I think that the image of like, put your own oxygen mask on first, right? Like we have to be able to love ourselves in order to love those around us. And again, the whole point of receiving this gift of our bodies and our souls is so that we can make that gift and act in a loving way towards those around us. I feel like I missed the first half of your question and all that.
No, that's okay. Well, actually, I wanted to get on now. My final category is medicine.
Yeah.
So again, the whole point of our conversation here is trying to figure out taking care of our bodies, how much is too much, where's the line, is it sinful? Okay, we've talked about food, we talked about exercise. Now when it comes to medicine, is it problematic? Is it sinful when we know there is a medicine or a procedure that could help us and we choose not to do it? Kind of going back to the lines of, well, God gave me this body, I should do everything I can to take care of it, and there is some medicine or procedure that could help me, or most likely will help me. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Nah, I'm not going to do it. And that could take you down a rabbit hole and spiral.
Where sin comes from and the obsession with exercise and eating healthy, there is a balance in there and ways to do it in a way that doesn't interfere with your walk with God. And you can always consult him first, I always say. It's more than just moderation, right? And of course, you can find out more with Deep Dive and any of the episodes you might have missed. Just go to EWTN.com/podcast and you're in the midst of Podcast Central anytime from anywhere. I'm Ace McKay. When Catholics Coast to Coast returns, just a guy in the pew. He's going to be talking about how we can open up, about how to be easy when it's about pouring yourself into work or ministry. You also got to be able to give your loved ones not just your leftovers, but your best. And then how a real measure of faith is not just in what we do publicly, but in how we love privately. Let's find more with just a guy in the pew coming up next on Catholics Coast to Coast.
If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Welcome to The Pew, the place where everyday guys talk about everyday things in front of the one person who can do something about it, Jesus Christ. Now here's your host, just a guy in the pew, John Edwards.
Well, welcome back to The Pew, everybody. I'm your host, John Edwards, and here across the table from me this week is my co-host and cohort, Victor Adams.
John, I'm going to do a plug.
A plug, like a hair plug,
yeah.
Trying to talk about my hair?
Well, no. This is for me, really.
Sure.
And I don't know. You can edit this out if you want to.
I don't edit, man.
But anyways, like I said, the great thing about being Catholic is that suffering comes to the point of healing. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, I say it because all of us may have a medium or high impact of suffering, depending on what we're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, for me, I'm still looking for a job because I was laid off.
Yeah.
So I'm still out there. So anyone that wants to hire me, just give John
Shameless
a call.
plug.
Right,
Now I
right,
get your
yeah.
plug.
Right. Yeah. So, but today is October the 1st, and so I for some reason I've never had to go long without finding something. So I wonder if God's kind of making me be still. To be patient, to rely on him, because I've always go. I've had the connections and stuff. If I left the job, I had a job right there.
Yeah.
Or last time I was laid off, I was all hired within the same week from a different company.
Sure.
So it's kind of like I saw God in all that moment, but I'm like, did I get a little hubris? In the moment from that time to that. So
stop speaking Latin.
Right.
So.
Am I thinking I'm more than I am?
Yeah. No, I doubt that with you. You're a man of great humility.
Well, it's now that's tempting as well for me to say yes, but that's a no. But anyways, like I said, I just love working nonprofit if that's available. If you and you've been went out there looking for me, help me out too.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, is there a shift in our lives coming up for everybody, like maybe we put so much energy into one thing for so long, and we were dependent on that, or we felt loyal by our employers to do that, and all of a sudden that loyalty is smashed, you said with Napa and
that happened back in the day for me too.
Right. And so it's kind of like they want you to work hard, they want you to be the hunter, to go out there and bring those leads, and just kind of grow the company, but then all of a sudden at any moment's notice, they can renege on that. So, but the thing about God's faith and God's love is that He never does that.
Yeah.
If we can
never leaves you, never abandons you. Yeah.
If we seek Him, if we devote our daily life to Him, if we we call out His name in the midst of our suffering and our struggles, He shows up. He doesn't go, "Oh, hold up, man, let me get back to you."
Yeah.
And I find that during those moments of dryness that we think is dry, is the most powerful moment of our lives.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. I mean, that's where he kind of lets you have your own line to hang yourself, if you will, or lets you loose.
It's like, what are you going to do?
It's like, when I'm not holding your hand, which He's always there with us, right? And in fact, I mean, St. Ignatius always talks about, or it did talk about, like sometimes when you feel like God's the furthest from you is actually when He's so close you can't even see Him and feel Him. But like there are times where He's not punishing you. He's not, allowing something terrible to happen. He's just like, okay, what's your faith going to be like? How are you going to handle this? Like, where are you in your maturity, spiritual maturity, when I'm not there immediately taking care of things? And it is like, you can look at that as a detriment, a painful thing, and woe is me, and kind of going into
why is my
Eeyore
life?
In your life.
Why is this happening to me right now?
Yeah.
Why is this struggle in my life, in my relationships, in my job? What is this? And usually that is like the light bulb pops and goes, oh, you know what? I've been focused on you. I'm sorry, God.
Yeah, and that's where it goes back to, like, folks, if you didn't listen a couple weeks ago, we did an episode on a change in perspective, right? Looking at things as well. We have a proclivity to look at everything negatively, and when we do that, then you're going to find yourself in the place you don't want to be,
right?
Because everything becomes negative, everything becomes clouded. One thing starts to roll downhill, and then it becomes everything, or you have that option of changing your perspective, as we talked about a few weeks ago, to look at this as like, yeah, maybe this is a time for me. Maybe God wants you to rest a little bit, to relax, to get some things done for Christy and around the house.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this job you've been waiting for.
I've had a list of things.
She's taking full advantage of it, huh?
Look, let me tell you, I love my wife.
Yeah.
She asked if I washed out the garbage cans, so I did that already.
Oh,
so,
there you go. There you go.
It was kind of bad.
And in all seriousness, for those of you out there, like, I mean, Victor, I can attest for his hard work, his work ethic, his faith. He's wonderful at the things he does. So if any of you are looking for somebody out there, please just reach out to the show at justaguyonthepew.com, justaguyonthepew@gmail.com. And we can connect you with Victor. Also, though, just in general, just pray that the right opportunity comes and he finds that and everything, so that he can get back on track and have that peace of mind with providing for the family and just what we all want. We want to do something with our lives besides sit around or wash garbage cans, right?
Yeah, right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
Victor's like, no more garbage cans. I will go and do something else.
Once a year, I told her that's what I'll do.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm excited to get into the show today, man. And before we jump into it, I just want to mention again for everybody out there, Poland is now open for registration again. It is filling up. We've got a lot of people that are very interested in it. We got a lot of people from our Greece trip that are signing up that we just got back from. It's going to be freaking awesome. The priest that's going with us is from Poland originally, grew up there. His mother's been a tour guide.
Amazing. Yeah.
And he's great homilist, all that stuff. It's going to be a phenomenal time. Come and have a pierogi with me. Go walk through the footsteps of St. John Paul II. Again, it's June the 16th through the 25th of 2026. You can find out more about it at justaguyonthepew.com. You can register there through the links, or you can Google John Edwards in Poland. It'll come up with Select International Tours and Cruises. That's our pilgrimage partner, and you can register there. Folks, I hope you'll join us. It's going to be a fantastic trip, and it will sell out quickly. So go and register today. Also, I wanted to tell you that for those of you out there that have been supporting us, thank you. It's really helped us keep afloat all these years and helping us grow and just meeting the demand of what God's putting on this ministry. We are having just phenomenal success and a lot of great opportunities. But here's the fact. There are some parishes that don't have the means to bring us in, and they're in great need of what we're doing for their men. And I don't ever want finances or anything like that to be sustained in the way of helping a parish build life-changing ministry to men. So what we're starting to do in the ministry is we want to start a scholarship program for parishes that just can't bring us in. We got a call this week. They have 200 families. They don't have the finances for the expenses, for the plane tickets, for all that kind of stuff, and the work that we do with all the training and everything else. And so parishes like that shouldn't go without help because of the situation they're in with a rural parish or a small place. So what we want to do is start a scholarship fund, but we need the funds to be able to do that, right? To be able to cover those costs so we can keep this ministry moving forward and help these parishes. So if you'd like to be a part of helping a parish, bring us in to start a life-changing men's group. We'd love for you to come alongside us as a monthly partner pew or as a one-time giver. I'll tell you, this past weekend in Illinois, when we got through in that parish, I brought up the men's leadership team and the main guy, Tim, shout out to them, and Father Bob up at St. Mary's in Edwardsville. Tim, when I gave him the microphone to speak to the parish about why he was so excited, what they were going to do, he had a tear in his eye and he said, I don't know if I can do this without crying. Mm-hmm. And he said, we had 4 men before and we have 12 on this leadership team now. And we're so excited. And then this plan, then the microphone went to the pastor and the pastor started crying and said, I am so proud to be a pastor of a parish like this and people like this. Mm-hmm. This is the impact we're having, and no one should go without it, right? So we want to build this scholarship program, this scholarship opportunity for other parishes that have smaller membership or have constraints financially that keep us from being able to come in and help them. I wish we could do this for free for everybody, but in order to do that, we need donations. We need support. This is life-changing work we're doing. I could fill the rest of this time in the show talking about the testimonies that we get each and every week from men. They're talking about how the podcast has changed their life. These groups are changing their life. These parishes are changing. It's really amazing work. So if you want to come alongside of us and help build these scholarships and really do something to help us evangelize the culture and to change things in the world, then consider becoming a partner in the pew today. You can do so by going to justaguyonthepew.com. You can click the donate button that's on the side of the screen, or some of the other methods there on the website. We would love to have your support, and we sorely need it so we can continue to help parishes, especially those that can't bring us in on their own. So just wanted to get that out there today. And Victor, I want to jump in the episode. This is something that's very personal to me today. We're going to be talking about today, am I competing well? Right? I'm going to share a little bit from the heart today, not that we don't normally, but, I guess I'll just say it. Like, a couple weeks ago, I had Nick on, our mutual friend. You've known him longer than I have, but good friend in both of our lives. And during that episode, in between all the stepbrother jokes and all the funny stuff we were having, laughs and stuff, he mentioned something where we were talking about how regardless of what we're in a lot of work, whether it's ministry or selling pallets or helping people get into behavioral science centers, like a lot of times we could put our best foot forward in our jobs and put everything into that. And we can get into all of it about how we're men and we have to provide. And so we throw our whole, best foot forward in that. And a lot of times, we come home with nothing left over. That happens in my life more than I would like it to. It happened when I was at Napa. I remember I used to listen to this one sales guy who was not a good role model at all. And I was complaining one time about like, man, all I do all day long is handle people's problems. And then I get home and like, I can't even get in the door good before my wife has 72 problems that I now have to solve there. And he would say, well, that's what you need to tell her. Like, I've been solving problems all day long. I don't have time to solve anymore. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't seem right or conducive for marriage, especially when a guy had been divorced 3 times, right? So probably not the best person to listen to on marriage advice. But I was very selfish. I was, on drugs, everything else back then. But even now in ministry sometimes, like Nick said in the episode, even in his own life, he said, Amy Roberts, his wife, will say, I'm tired of getting the leftover Nick. And, just to put it out there, Angela and I here lately have been struggling in a lot of ways. She's gotten a new position at St. Jude and something she worked hard for. She was in graduate school, supported her through all that, taking over a lot of responsibilities for the kids, and kind of was like, man, when that's over, we'll get back to just having time with each other and all those things. And God knows I'm gone every other weekend. I could work in this office until 10 o'clock at night every night. I've tried to stop at 5 every day and be at the ball games and things that I miss when I'm not here on the road. And it's just very stressful in the ministry itself in that way, because you're always feeling like you're stretched between two goods, right? My family and then the work that God's called me to. And I'm sure that's the same for people in regular jobs too. But, I had been saying a lot to Angela, like, you're never around. Like, when I'm here, you're busy. And so we'd really been struggling. And, a weekend or so ago, it came to a head. I came back from an event. I was exhausted. She was out. I needed her help with some things. She was out doing some other stuff. And I just lost my temper and was just like, you never have any time with me. You never have any time for me. And then she lost her temper. Like, well, let's talk about like what you're like when you're here. Right. And that's not, what a lot of people probably think I'm some angel and I get it all right because we talk about this stuff all the time on the podcast, but I've tried to be very open and honest in this whole journey over the last 9 years about how much I could fail and how many faults I have and how it's easy to talk to other people about how to be better. It's very difficult to do it yourself. So we had this big blow up and man, it was not nice. It was not kind. It was neither one of us were mature in it and it was hard. And I started thinking like, man, our kids, Jacob's about to be 16. The girls are 12. This is going on and off for a number of years. Like, this is why I always tell people, like, you don't just say, I'm sorry, and then you're healed. Like, there's a lot of wounds that Angela and I have from my mistakes, from previous relationships we had, all that stuff. And, like, they never, like, you might take care of one wound, but then it just, another one resurfaces, right? Oh, I didn't even know I had this one. And so that's the constant restoration we have to be doing in our lives and the healing on ourselves and with each other. So long story short, like I noticed like with the kids, like, man, this is becoming commonplace to them. Like it's just, they're numb to it now and it's not a great place to be. And so I was just at wit's end. I'm like, gosh, I had to go and do this mission, which was a great grace. And I have to go tell everybody about like our wonderful story and how to be better people and how to love people well, especially your wives and your family. And I felt like such a hypocrite because I was struggling to get it right in my own life, right? And you and I talk openly about our own struggles and our own failings and things on here and then personally. But man, it was bad that weekend. And so it's funny, Sunday morning I get up and I have to lecture. And I haven't had to lecture in months. And so we go to church and we're having to have services in the gym now because they're having to repair the roof in the church. And So it's just a different setting, and I've got to go up there and lecture. My voice was shot from the mission. Luckily, God gave me I've never had a perfect voice, but a decent voice to read. And so I'm sitting up there and the light's coming through, and Angela's having to sit in the front row, and Jacob, and it's just another scene like here we are in front of the church, and people are probably thinking, oh man, look at them and the perfect family and the evangelist and all that stuff. And I'm just feeling the hypocrisy and the weight of all of it. Not that people might have even been thinking that, but in my head, that's what they might be thinking. And I get up there, and I haven't even really looked at the readings because I got back late and just got up, didn't realize I had to lecture, and so here I am. And so the reading was this. It is from 1 Timothy 6:11-12. And it said, but you, man of God, avoid all this. Instead, pursue righteousness, devotion, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. Compete well for the faith. Lay hold of eternal life, to which you were called when you made the noble confession in the presence of many witnesses. Now, obviously, Paul's talking to Timothy here. And before this, he was talking about a lot of negativity and a lot of things that would tear you down. And so he's building Timothy up. But as I was reading this, I always look up when I'm reading. I get to compete well for the faith, and the first thing I see is my family staring back at me, my daughters who are altar serving, and then Jacob and Angela standing there in front of me. And I'm like, man, can I really say right now in this moment, and maybe for a long time, that I'm competing well for the faith? Yes, like on the ministry side, of course. Like I'm going and I'm giving everything I have out there to start groups and to build podcasts that help people change their lives, hopefully, and with our men's group and all of that. But what really hit me, man, was when we get in arguments, we get in fights, we naturally want to assume that the problem is with the other person. And you can get in this mindset to where like you just believe that, right? Or that just becomes your default. And I realized in that moment, as I looked at my wife and my kids, I was like, I can't say right now as I'm reading this very reading that I'm competing well for the faith where it really counts at home and in my family, and it really hit me, man. So I get through lecturing and I go back and I'm standing there, and Angela, for the first time forever, I guess, didn't have on high heels. And I noticed how little she was next to me, just how tiny she was. And I was like, man, I'm supposed to be protecting her. I'm supposed to be a strength for her. I'm supposed to be her refuge. And I know she's having all this difficulty at work. And like, have I really been competing well for her in that? Have I competed well? And so I know I've talked a lot here in the opening because it was a lot to say and to kind of open up to, but this is the thing. Like, yes, in the ministry world, I would say I might get an A on that. But man, in a lot of other places in my relationships, in my personal life, I would say I'd probably get a C, a D, or an F in a lot of times. And, maybe a lot of evangelists and a lot of people wouldn't say the things like I am now. Maybe it'll cut some people to, cut off the dial or stop listening to podcasts, whatever. I'm just trying to be honest about the difficulties that we can all face. But, Victor, we've talked about this a lot before. We've talked about like enduring and persevering and competing well and virtue and really, are we competing well? But we've never really given anybody or ourselves a litmus test to really figure that out. So that's one thing I want to do today. I have some other verses from St. Paul that I want to go through. I want to stop and pause and give you a moment here to respond. Because you've been around our relationship. You know that we've had struggles and you've had some in your own relationship that you've talked about before. But that's really what I want to talk about today is like the question, not for me and not just for you, but for everybody, are we stopping and looking at where it matters in our life? Am I competing well for the faith? And we'll get into how to do that more in a second. But I want to hear from you.
And going from that, God's many gifts He gives to us, I think, are found in the sacraments. You go through all the sacraments; it is a gift of love. Whether someone wants to go the sacrament of marriage and to couple themselves with another person, a spouse, or those that seek to go in holy orders, to follow God's will that way, and God's love unfolds everywhere. In those sacraments. I think for the Catholic faith, that's why the sacrament of marriage is so pivotal, because it's like we bring our own trauma into a marriage, regardless of not if we're ready for that person or not, because a lot of us haven't really dealt with our own deepest, darkest trauma or secrets that we've carried for a long time, hoping that no one else knows, or trying to keep it under wraps, like my behavior this way, my anger this way, because sometimes we can keep it under wrap for a little while, but then we're triggered, it shows up because that was our private sin that we always knew who we were. And that's why God's being the covenant of marriage is the essential for the marriage, because if God is in the center of it, He knows we both need healing. Like, for instance, Christy and I, for when her mom was living with us, she had onset dementia, she had COPD, for all those years of smoking. So she was kind of like very fragile, like fall risk, everything else. So we devoted like almost 3 years. Well, she was with us for 4 years, but 3 years that she got really, like, her health, diminished increasingly. And then dementia really kept, onset. But for 3 years, we were the care providers.
Yeah, you changed your house around.
Right, changed our house around. And luckily, Marcia, her sister, came and helped when we could. But it was like, it was like every other night we were down there. I was down there making sure she didn't get up and start, walking out the door, or, falling, or going to have to help her go to the bathroom, and, all that stuff. And, we had to take scissors away from her because she would cut her breathing tube because she said someone told her to do that. So it was kind of like we had to take stuff away, from like almost like she was a toddler, and that stress of care providing, even though we were tight in our marriage, is one of the things where we really stopped communicating with each other, because it was like, hey, go get Ella, or I got Mom, or we need to go do this. So we are always constantly doing errands away from each other, not really being with each other. And we would have date nights and so on and so forth. But I noticed that, like, for me, it was like I needed her close to me. And she needed the same thing too, and it was a struggle of kind of like being not just the intimacy part of it all, but just kind of being close to each other, being able to talk. And I noticed that I wasn't sharing as much with her of what was going on in my daily life, because I would say something and then her mom would call out and she, hold on, let me go do this. And so we had a lot of unfinished communication, or conversations,
which could lead to like feeling like nobody's giving you time, and not being heard.
And so me knowing that her mom needed all that care, that was still kind of like frustration to me, is like, gosh, I love Peggy. I'm glad she's here with us, but it's like, this is a lot of work, And whenever you have like a barrier that just like, boom, is in front of, even in the holiest marriages, there's going to be conflict, or there's going to be miscommunication or skewed interpretations of what's being said, or hey, I thought you told me you do this, and then like, no, I meant to say this, and and then the smallest triggers can affect that conversation, where it becomes combative almost, or defensive, But the thing is, what I'm trying to get to is that God knows that those things are going to happen to us, and when we find that we're like isolating ourselves, God kind of wakes up in our hearts again and says, "Hey, man, you're kind of going a little farther away from what you need to be," and for us, we started doing. That's why during Lent, Chris and I started doing the Rosary every night, during Lent, and that was an amazing proposition for us coming back together, and that was through prayer. That was the sacrament of marriage was boom, it was right there, it was back again. Now, and we still had to take care of her and stuff. Her mom, but I know that there's a distance that did kind of come in, it set us apart a little bit. And with all the sacraments that God gives to us, it's all of love, we can go through each, label all of them, but it's a love of devotion, but a love of living as well.
Yeah, it is. And like, I was looking at all my notes here, like, Catechism 1827 talks about charity, and it discusses love as the form of all virtues, the animating force that guides us in our race. As Paul talks about, run us to win, and compete well for the faith. And so, like, it's kind of funny how so much God does so much stuff. Like, and this is why, like you were talking about earlier, like suffering and struggles, and we can want to give up, but like there's so much beauty that comes out of those things too. Like that saying, "It's always darkest before the dawn," is like so true. Yeah. Because sometimes, like Angela and I even said, like, as we had a moment of healing, and like just some really great stuff happening in our relationship now because of this bad time that we had to go through. But it's she just even said, like, why do we have to let it get so far before? And I was like, I don't know, but we're learning each time, like, and we're getting better, and we're not giving up on one another. We're not.
St. Paul urging us to complete well for the faith, but what does that look like in everyday life? Just a guy in the pew, moral night conversation, or ones you might have missed? Easy to find. Go to EWTN.com/podcast, or simply search Just a Guy in the Pew wherever you stream, and then you never miss a single episode. I'm Ace McKay. Bug it out, going home, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and of course, remember to let God define who you are. And I'll see you again with Catholics Coast to Coast.